So is your character's idea of roughing it to go glamping? Do you have a deep, burning ambition to host a tea party for your entire adventuring group in the middle of a 7th level dungeon overnight? Do you really like casting Fireball? I mean, like a lot. Do you want all your wishes to come true? Oh, you do? Well, you're in luck. Because behind today's secret door is part 2 of the Genie, Pact of the Chain, Warlock test drive. So behind today's secret door, part 2 of the Genie, Pact of the Chain, Warlock test drive. Part 1 took us through levels 1 through 8, and this video will take us through levels 9 through 20. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Matt Morich. Okay, well, I'm hoping that you saw part 1 before you're watching this. If you haven't seen that, the link will be in the description. Part 1 of the test drive. And before you watch that, if you haven't seen the precursor video to all of this, is Pact of the Chain familiars and what to do with them. That link will also be in the description. So a brief, quick overview here is in order, I think. What we found with the Genie is what the primary thing we get is, of course, the vessel, the Genie's vessel, the bottle. And in our case, we are going to use the ring as the bottle because you get to pick what the bottle is. So we're using a ring. You can do whatever you want. I'm just for the sake of the test drive. And I think it's really convenient to have your spell casting focus be a ring. And it's also easier for them to carry that. You have to pick what your Genie is that you're serving for your Warlock patron. And for the purposes of this test drive, we are going with the Ifrit. And of course, we're going Pact of the Chain, and we're choosing the Imp. The bottle does an enormous amount of things, and that's only going to get amped up as we go through this level by level. And, well, we'll just get to the issues of the bottle when we get to those levels. All right, part 2, here we go. So level 9. Level 9, we get, of course, our 5th level spells, which means now that all of our Pact magic spells are being cast at 5th level. Fireball, if we cast it as being cast as a 10-die-6 fireball, that's nice. It's not going to always be as impactful. Like throughout this, the damage the fireball is doing is going to go down relative to the kinds of creatures you're going to be facing. But don't let that discourage you. It's still a good amount of damage. But as we start leveling up, we're going to get different spells that will be, for special encounters, you'll want to use those. But for the rest of your career, Fireball is going to be your go-to, I'm going to damage things a lot spell. Now, certain things that I mentioned in the previous videos, and I didn't mention it at all in the test drive video, I did mention it in the familiar video. You really want to make sure that you're getting a Wand of Magic Missiles. And I'm sure by 9th level, you've already got a Wand of Magic Missiles. But you also want the Imp to have, and by 9th level, I think it's pretty doable that you could get this. It's a rare magic item. You want the Ring of Spell Storing. That is the holy grail for the Imp to get. Now, there's 2 different choices because you don't want to put a concentration spell in there for the Imp, as delicious as that would be. Because you could put Hypnotic Pattern in there. That's on the standard Warlock spell list. But the Imp would have to concentrate on it. And if the Imp concentrates on that, he loses, or she loses their invisibility, and that's no good. So the 2 standout choices for me would be Fireball. Having an extra Fireball that the Imp can throw around once in an encounter, and you could recharge it as necessary, That's nice. And again, folks, it doesn't violate its invisibility. It's not attacking. So that's really nice. The other one, and this may be overall the stronger choice really, is Counterspell. Because you're going to have a 5th level slot, assuming at 9th level, you're going to have a 5th level slot that you're putting in there for Counterspell, which means it's going to counter anything. There's no roll needed. If you did that with the imp at an earlier level where it might have to roll, not so good. But in this case, it's just going to be automatic. It's countered. Now, Counterspell is not, as much as it's ballyhooed, it's a fabulous spell. It's a great spell. But it's a really, really, really situational spell. It just depends on how many times you're facing casters. The really nice thing about Counterspell for you is that you don't have to cast it. And you're using the imp's reaction, because Counterspell is a reaction spell. You're using the imp's reaction to cast it. So you're getting the most out of the imp's action economy, which is already an addition to your action economy. Now, Counterspell by itself, like I said, it's situational, but boy, when that situation arises, you really wish you had it. So, and you may have to have some kind of a discussion with the DM about, I mean, you control the imp, but let's be honest here. This is a bang, bang decision. This is a very, very fast thing. So the caster is casting. The imp isn't going to know what it's casting. You don't even know what it's casting. Whether it's going to use that counterspell or not, from a role-playing standpoint, I mean, you have a telepathic bond. Maybe you could say, I squeeze in, do it, telepathically. Do it. Could it be fast enough? I mean, it has to be like that. And I know telepathy is like that, but I mean, it's edgy. So you might want to talk to the DM if your DM has an issue with that, and just kind of iron out what the rules are going to be before you throw counterspell in there. And you don't have to always throw counterspell in. You could always have a fireball in there by default. And then if you know that you're going to be facing a caster, I would put counterspell in. That's going to be the strongest use of the spell. But why I'm saying all this stuff about whether you need to talk to the imp about it or not is because the imp is going to have to make the decision. And it is always a guessing game. But you would like to be the one to make that choice. But it may be that you just have to have a certain default that if that guy casts, ever counter it. That may just be the realistic way of doing it. But that just depends on your DM, your table. The whole atmosphere is going to be different from table to table, DM to DM. So counterspell, fireball as a default. Those are the two best choices for that. All right, so at 9th level, we get our 5th level spell, as I said earlier. And of course, I'm going to pick something that you might just go, man. I'm going to say scrying here. Now, this would be my immediate choice. Obviously, you can fill in later. Scrying, remember what we've got going on. We've got all the scouting going on with the imp, and I don't need to go over that all again. But we also have Ghostly Gaze as an invocation. Now, maybe you didn't take it, but if you did take it, that's that next layer of information gathering. You're being able to see what's on the other side of the door, the other side of a wall. You're being able to walk into a room and pop Ghostly Gaze, and because you suspect that there may be a secret door in this room. And you pop Ghostly Gaze, and sure enough, there's a secret passage right there. Who knew? So Ghostly Gaze is just that next level of what you can do for information gathering. I like it. And because it recharges at a short rest, and you're probably getting 2 short rests a day, means Ghostly Gaze, you can use it 3 times a day, most days. You can never assume 100% that these short rest things are going to go off this way. But in most cases, I think 2 short rests, meaning 3 uses of Ghostly Gaze, is going to be very, very reasonable. And as I said in part 1, this is outperforming a Ring of X-ray vision. It does better than the Ring of X-ray vision. And you can use it more often in a day. It recharges at a short rest, and Ring of X-Ray Vision, you can only use it once per long rest. So I like it. So scrying fits into this whole thing because you've got the scouting, you've got ghostly gaze, and now you've got scrying. So scrying is going to allow you to not have to send the imp, or maybe you've got the imp doing something else, but you need to see what's going on over here. And so this just gives you this ultimate information brokery. I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but you are your own walking spy network at this point now. And the imp can play into scrying as well, because one of the aspects of scrying is the role you need to make is enhanced if you can get something of that person's, some belonging of theirs. So all the imp has to do is follow that person and get something off of them. Or when they know that that person's left, sneak into the house and get something of theirs. And now you have it. So while the imp's going off doing something else, you want to scry on this enemy, or it may not be an enemy. It could be anybody that you just want to scry on. And it just allows you to have a much more reliable way. So you just have a lot of ways now of getting information, which is power, especially in a game riddled with secrets and of things you couldn't know otherwise. So I like scrying here. All right, our average damage per round is going to be 23 points from our Eldritch Blast, 4 points from Maddening Hex, and if we do a fireball in that encounter, it's going to raise, and you should, in most cases, that's going to average up to 15. So you're going to be looking at 27 with Maddening Hex and Eldritch Blast, and another 15 from Fireball, so 42 when you cast Fireball per round. Very good damage. We also get a new invocation. Now, for the invocation, I've been talking about Repelling Blast. This is a time where you could take Repelling Blast. I'm going to posit another invocation, and this is strictly to taste choice. I would take Voice of the Chainmaster here over Repelling Blast. We will take Repelling Blast, I promise. But I would take Voice of the Chainmaster here because around this level, and probably a little bit earlier, we're going to be probably sending the imp out on more extended missions. We're just going to be, the campaign has been developing now. We're 9th level. So the chances that you're going to want to send the imp miles away is high. So Voice of the Chainmaster allows you to keep telepathic contact with the imp as long as you're on the same plane of existence. And it has the cool little role-playing buff of that you can speak through the familiar in your own voice. Could be pretty cool. So if you wanted to go with Repelling Blast here, that's fine. I would take Voice of the Chainmaster at our next opportunity. Level 10. This is a big one. There's been a lot of big levels for this character from the levels 1 through 8, and there's obviously a lot in level 9 through 20, but this, in my opinion, is the biggest one because we get Sanctuary Vessel. Sanctuary Vessel is the bottle at the height of its power, fully powered. Just what you can do with this is crazy. Okay, what does it do? You can take up to 5 willing creatures with you into the bottle. You can stay in the bottle, of course, up to twice your proficiency bonus in hours. So you have a +4 proficiency bonus now, means you're staying for 8 hours or a long rest if you chose to. So everybody's in the bottle now, or probably, hopefully everybody. Oh, and to finish out what it can do, there's 2 other aspects. You can perform if anybody stays in there for 10 minutes, they get the effect of a short rest. And anybody that spends their hit dice to regain hit points gains a bonus equal to your proficiency bonus, which is, of course, +4. That's nice. So you could do a short rest in the bottle, 10-minute short rest for everybody. And with Inspiring Leader, That's a long enough time as well for you to do Inspiring Leader, which you should absolutely do. By the way, I think I forgot to mention this in part 1. When you go in the bottle by yourself, you should absolutely be doing Inspiring Leader on yourself, giving a speech to yourself. If you've lost it, you will have lost the temporary hit points anyway, one way or the other, because you took a rest. So yeah, renew it. And now you can do it with the whole party. So that's great, right? That's wonderful. But it's so much more than that, because you've got the imp on the outside, like always, and now it can carry the whole party. So you want infiltration? Take the whole party. Remember the castle we were talking about in level 1 that you really wanted to penetrate? Everybody in the bottle. Imp takes the bottle. Everything's invisible into the castle. And the bottle trick is now on steroids. It's worse than steroids. Steroids, human growth hormone, and all the other cocktails of performance-enhancing drugs that these guys take. So the whole party now can penetrate into most very hard to penetrate places. It's insane. That's insane. Here's the other awesome thing. It is, remember I mentioned at the very end of the last video that while it could be draconian, that it's a get out of jail free card. If things look like they were headed for a TPK, you could always retreat to the bottle, assuming you hadn't used it that day, and fly away. And that would leave the party behind. Well, now you won't be leaving the party behind. Everybody in the bottle, because it doesn't require a reaction from anybody. It's your turn. It has to be your turn to do it. But everybody can get in the bottle on your turn, and you just tell the imp, get us out of here, and off you go. So you can get in, you can get out. This is a DM's nightmare. It is, and don't abuse this, because you don't want to make the game boring, and you don't want the DM to be forced to be coming up with one ridiculous thing after another to counter this. Because let's face it, not everybody running around is going to be a Genie Warlock, and not everybody running around in the world out there is going to be a Genie Pact of the Chain with the imp Warlock. It's just not going to be that common of an occurrence, and you should make it an uncommon occurrence. Use it, but use it wisely. Use it sparingly, and everyone will enjoy the benefits of it much more. While we're on the subject of the bottle and the party coming in, there's some role-playing aspects that I think are appropriate here. So I had alluded to in the previous video of things that I would want to do with the bottle. I would want to get special furniture that was maybe magical, that I could miniaturize and carry with me into the bottle. So you're going to be the host. And this is going to be something that the party is going to be, I'm sure, using pretty frequently. So if you want to be a good host, maybe you want to have a set of great silverware, tea service, or whatever. I would spend an enormous amount of time acquiring these type of things in downtime and bringing them in the bottle. And when all of the party can finally see everything that's in there, and you can be the gracious host left and right, and I would have food galore in there. I would be shopping and getting a wheelbarrow full of food, and a backpack with food, and a belt with multiple pouches, with whatever I wanted to be putting in any of these things anytime I went into the bottle. And those things would all go back into the bag of holding on the way back out that the imp is carrying. So in this way, you can get you're going to want to make sure that it's your bottle, right? But you can be a gracious host. You can be very obliging, and people can bring their own stuff and maybe leave it in there. That's up to you. Maybe you don't want anybody leaving any of their nasty things in the bottle. That's totally role-playing choices. But it's going to allow the party now to enjoy a lair. Very, very cool. Okay, level 11. Another big, big level. This is big for all Warlocks. It's a really big level for all Warlocks. because we get 3 bolts and 3 slots. Now, it's an even bigger deal to you because you're probably getting 2 short rests a day, which means you're going to have 9 slots. So in the intro, when I talked about, do you like casting Fireball a lot? Well, if one of the slots is definitely going for Hex, you've got 8. Maybe you want to keep another one in reserve just in case you lose Hex. I mean, remember, you took Fey Touched, so you have the 1 hour casting of Hex that you can always cast if you do lose your primary. But even if you kept one in reserve, that's 7 fireballs in a day. I don't think it's realistic that you're going to want to cast 7 fireballs in a day. I think it's very realistic that you're probably going to want to cast one at the beginning of every combat. And maybe every now and again you'll be able to get a second one in if the first round things are still not all mixed up on the board. After that melee has been engaged, it's going to be very difficult to hit your targets in an area of effect spell like that. It can be done, but it's just not as likely. So this is where at 11th level you really flip as the modality of the Warlock is now just completely flipped. So whereas before you were just Eldritch Blast and Fireball, but largely 3 out of 4 rounds are just Eldritch Blasting, now you've got extra slots. What are you going to do with them? And we'll get to the Mystic Arcanum in a moment. But what are you going to do with those extra slots? Because you're going to want to take advantage of them somehow. So you could use Mirror Image. Mirror Image is a great defensive spell. It doesn't require a concentration. So it plays very nice. And you may have had opportunities to cast it earlier before this, but the spell slots are just so precious. Having that extra one around is going to be useful. So defensively, maybe you want to go with Mirror Image. Conversely, you could go with Armor of Agathis. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Armor of Agathis for a character like this, but when you're casting it with a 5th level slot, it's fairly potent. I mean, you're going to get 25 temporary hit points, so it could be something to cast once you've lost your hit points and you haven't taken a short rest. It's going to bump you up to 25, or you could just override your previous temporary hit points and cast Armor of Agathis, and now you've got 25. But it's also going to deal 25 cold damage to whoever hits you while you still have temporary hit points from Armor of Agathis. That's potent because if you have 25 hit points, temporary hit points, and you get hit for 7, or let's say 12, you get hit for 12 hit points. So you got 13 temporary hit points left, and they take 25. Now it's the next round, and they hit you for 10. So now you've got 3 temporary hit points, and they took another 25. They have to hit you again to get rid of all those temporary hit points, and they take another 25. That's a really great value. I mean, you're getting defense, and that's an awful lot of offense. Now, there's going to be situations where it all gets traded out once. You get hit by a big hit, and all those temporary hit points are gone. That's still 25 temporary hit points and 25 damage. There's no save or nothing. It is cold damage, but hey. So Armor of Agathis is a choice you can make. Here's the problem. It has to trigger off of a melee attack. It's up to you. Is that risk reward? I mean, you got the extra temporary hit points to be able to take it. Do you want to do it? So I'm going to mention it throughout the video of what a casting of Armor of Agathis would do. It will average, by my reckoning, I'm figuring it would take about 2.5 hits to get rid of Armor of Agathis. So that would average, one casting would average about 5 an additional 5 per round. That's not incidental, but is it worth it? I mean, you are going to want to still have invisibility as an option, because remember now, let's go back to the 10th level bottle trick where you take the whole party into the castle. Now, if you cast invisibility from a 5th level slot, you are hitting you and 3 other party members. So somebody's going to have to be able to cast invisibility, but I mean, you do have other casters, I'm sure, or if somebody's got something that they can do. So you're going to want to keep invisibility if you know you're going to be doing a bottle trick. But in general, now is the time where you're going to be feeling more and more castery, and we haven't even gotten to the Mystic Arcanum yet. So let's do that now. So you're going to get your first Mystic Arcanum, which is a 6th level spell. And I'm going to take Mass Suggestion here. I think it's clearly the best available spell. And it's a potentially encounter-ending spell. Mass Suggestion, even if only a few of them fail, it can really radically alter an encounter. It can shut down an encounter before it even starts if you go early enough in the round. So now you've got that, then you've got the fireballs and all those slots to worry about. So, like I said, 3 combat encounters a day is probably normal. So Mystic Arcanum, that's 1, and you're going to get more of them. And now you've got all the fireballs and the spell slots. So you're going to feel much more caster-y is my point. So you're not just going to be Eldritch Blasting all over the place. You're going to be doing many, many more things. So our average damage now, because we've got the extra bolt, it's now from Eldritch Blast is 32, plus 4 for Maddening Hex, 36. If we did do a Armor of Agathis, if you went that route, that's an extra 5, so it would be 41, but 36 base. And then, of course, if we cast a Fireball, an extra 15. So assuming just Fireball and Eldritch Blast, you're looking at 51 average damage around at 11th level. If you go with Agathis, you're going to have 56 average. Pretty good. Okay, level 12. Finally, we get a new invocation. And finally, we're going to take Repelling Blast here. If you took Repelling Blast earlier, now you should take Voice of the Chainmaster. So whichever way. So now you've got that. If you're just now taking Repelling Blast, that extra control, it's going to be really nice now that you've got 3 bolts, because every time you hit, you're going to be able to move that target 10 feet in a direct line away from you. But remember, you can fly, and you've got a +5 to your proficiency bonus now. So that's 5 times in a day that you're going to be able to activate your flight from Elemental Gift. So unbelievably flexible. So you can get to whatever line position you should reasonably need to get to for Repelling Blast to really shine. Whether it's trying to knock somebody off of a cliff or a wall or a cliff or into a pit or whatever, I think that's going to be very rare. But I do think that effects that other casters, that your teammates are casting, as I said earlier, with the cleric putting up Spirit Guardians and somebody getting out of Spirit Guardians and you Repelling Blast them back in there, that's just going to be pretty common. Or if the wizard throws up web and you Repelling Blast them back into web, that's just nasty. So Repelling Blast can really shine from a control standpoint. There's no saving throw for it, and there's no limitation for size. I can't believe they didn't do that, but they didn't. So yeah, you could be knocking dragons and stuff around. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is magic. After all, it doesn't have to make a lot of sense. We also get our ASI, and we're not going to take the ASI. We are going to take a feat, and we're going to take one of my favorite feats for casters, which is Alert. Now, it is my opinion that this is coming a little bit late for this character, but I'm of the belief that you always want to get your primary stat up to 20. So even though I was sorely tempted to take it at level 8, I wouldn't. I would get the charisma to 20 and now take Alert. Truth be told, it's only now that you're really becoming really castery. Fireball going off early is good, but it isn't end-all be-all good. It's just good. And it's more good at level 8, frankly, because you're going to be able to probably knock off minions with Fireball. And that's very good if it goes off early. Now, are you going to knock off minions with Fireball? Yeah, some, but not many. So you're just going to be doing a lot. You're just optimizing it for maximum amount of targets. So What alert is going to give you, though, is all of the Mystic Arcanums that we're going to be taking, well, except for the last one, are going to be having battlefield effects that can end a battle before it starts. So it's really important that those go off early. And of course, alert gives you a +5 to your initiative. And I believe the errata, because they've errated the feat, it no longer reads that you cannot be surprised. I believe it says you are immune to the surprised condition, if I remember that. It's been errated, but it's the same thing. You can't be surprised. Now, why that's kind of an interesting deal for you is, let's say you do get ambushed. This doesn't happen very often in D&D, and if it does, it's probably going to happen to you. It's probably not going to be the vice versa. Although with the bottle trick, you might be able to pull that off. So if you get ambushed, that can be devastating. That can be a TPK, even at a level like this. Level 12 characters are very powerful. But if it's one round of free damage for the other side and spell effects and everything else, it can be devastating for a party. But you're not getting surprised. You get +5 to your initiative. Your dex is not going to be super great, I'm guessing, unless you rolled it. But it isn't going to be awful. You should have a 14 dex, I would think. I would strive to have a 14 dex and a 14 constitution. And I would sacrifice just about everything else to have those and have my charisma at max. So you're not getting surprised. The rest of the party is, but you're still going high in the initiative. It's possible you're going before your ambushers even are. In that case, you could do a survey of the situation, and if it looks, because remember, just because you're not surprised doesn't mean you should try and take the fight on. Your best action may be everybody in the bottle, because remember, they don't have to take an action of any kind. They just have to be willing. So everybody in the bottle, and imp takes you away. And that ambush, now they're wondering and worrying about where you're going to come out, and you could turn the tables on them completely. This is going to be a very rare situation. I realize that. But boy, how fun is that? And alert lets you do that. And in addition, of course, it allows you to go first most of the time, or at least high in the order. So I like alert for casters, and you are now very much a caster. We get our 7th level Arcanum, and there's no debate about what our 7th level Arcanum is going to be. Force Cage. Force Cage, there's no saving throw involved, and if it goes off early, it can define the encounter on your terms. So, because we took alert last level, now we get Force Cage at the next level, and it's popping early, and all is good in the world. If you have your 7th level Arcanum available to you in that encounter, you've pretty much got that one in the bag. But don't just blow it willy-nilly. You want to evaluate what you're looking at and make sure that you're getting the most value out of it. That being said, I would say that I would evaluate it on, is it good enough for me to think about using Force Cage? And if so, I would use it. Because if you get into the idea, if you fall into the trap of, oh, I'm going to save this for the extra big encounter. Well, that extra big encounter may not come that day. So if it looks like it's worth it to use Force Cage, use it. Absolutely use it. There will be other ways of dealing with the encounter. You don't need to always have Force Cage available. So yes, Force Cage, Force Cage, Force Cage. All right, 14th level. This is another great level. It's also a powerful and cool level. We get Limited Wish. Now, I don't know how much impact it has for you personally to feel like a genie. I mean, it probably has some, or you wouldn't be thinking about this class, but it could just be the mechanics as to why you're doing it. I personally, genies, I just love them. Just absolutely love them. The fact that this is mechanically such a wonderful class is just such a huge bonus for me. Like I said in the last video, if I were playing in a campaign tomorrow, I would be playing this, a Genie Warlock Pact of the Chain. No doubt about it. Limited Wish, you, as an action, you talk to your patron, you entreat your patron, and you get the effect of a 5th level spell or lower from any spell list. Any spell list. The flexibility of this is ridiculous. Now, your default, because you should have in mind what, like, oh my gosh, I don't have this available. What can I do? But I do have Limited Wish. Oh, I use Force Cage, but I have Limited Wish. I'll wish for Wall of Force, 5th level spell. Wall of Force is still probably going to do the trick. Force Cage does it a little bit better. Wall of Force will do, especially in a pinch. If that's your backup plan, it's a great backup plan. And that's really what Limited Wish is. It's the ultimate little backup plan. Another great spell is, and these are all kind of throw it in a pinch kind of thing. Greater Restoration. When you need Greater Restoration, you need it. Revivify. Because that's the thing, not Raise Dead. You could take Raise Dead, but not through Limited Wish, because the spell that you're going to ask for, it has to be a 1-action casting spell. And that's important because it can't be a reaction. It can't be anything else. You can't Limited Wish for Counterspell, for example. So you would have to go with Revivify over Raise Dead, because Raise Dead has, what is it, an hour? 10 minutes? It's got a longer casting time. And of course, Revivify is an action. It also doesn't require, you don't have to, with Limited Wish, you don't spend any of the material component cost. So you don't have to have a diamond on you to cast Revivify. But of course, there's the time limit of Revivify. In this case, if you know, and obviously you would be using Revivify because things have gone very, very badly and nobody else can cast it. Or maybe the person that normally casts it is down, in which case it's incredibly important to get them up. So, like I said, Greater Restoration, Revivify, Mass Cure Wounds, Wall of Force. There's other things like Anti-Life Shell. I mean, that could be useful for you. You're pushing everybody away and you can cast through it. Could be useful. Just a very flexible, I mean, there's all kinds of things you could cast. I'm just picking out the better choices. Super, super powerful and super flavorful. Just a magnificent spell. The one I really wanted to pick with this, that I was just like all giddy about, was Contingency. But of course, Contingency, I think that's the 10-minute one I was thinking of. Yeah, it's a 10-minute casting, if I remember right. So no Contingency, because that would have been fun. The other downside for Limited Wish, it's not that big of a downside. It's so powerful. You only get it back on a 1d4 of long rests. So this is not something you can do every day, and you can't just use it willy-nilly, because if you do roll badly, if you get a 3 or a 4, and a 3 is kind of average. So if you do roll, but it's the high end of average. So if you roll a 3 or a 4, that if you know you're going to be adventuring for the next several days, you might need that Limited Wish. So you do want to spend it as necessary, but you don't have to be miserly. Just be slightly cautious. Don't just be throwing it around. Limited Wish. Now you're kind of a genie. So level 15, we get our 8th level Mystic Arcanum, and we're going to take Dominate Monster. This has the potential to change an encounter around. It could also do nothing, but it has the potential to change the encounter. So it's, I think, the best option we have. We also get an Invocation. Now, here we're sort of really at total luxury picks, really. Nothing that is a must-have. So the one I'm going to pick is Gift of the Ever-Living Ones. And what this will do, it has really nice potential for you. Whenever you receive healing, as long as you're familiar, I believe is within 100 feet of you. It could be 30 feet. but as long as it's reasonably close to you, you get and dice are being rolled for you to receive healing, you get maximum healing. Now, that's good on a couple of fronts. It's obviously good, but it also means that the cleric doesn't have to burn a bunch, or whoever the healer is, doesn't have to burn a bunch on you to get you back up. That's number one. That's good. And that's good because it's less resources being taken away from other party members. So even though the total effect of that max is not as great as it sounds, it does have indirect effects that are very, very positive for the rest of the party in that sense. The other one is I would have much earlier than this, but by now I would definitely have the most expensive healing potion I could afford in the bag of holding that the imp has, maybe 2. Because if I do go down, the imp will know that his job is to get the best healing potion and give it to me so that I get the maximum value of that getting right back up. So now maybe I can I can survive and be able to re-engage in combat without having to worry about just getting dropped again. And maybe without having to have the healer really expend something on me, maybe just something to get me through the fight. So Gift of the Ever-Living Ones, I like it. There at this point, like I said, if there's just another one that you wanted to take, maybe you wanted to take Devil's Sight because it's the extended range and seeing through magical darkness. I mean, that's nice, but we've already got dark vision. So it's kind of dealer's choice here, but I would go with Gift of the Ever-Living Ones. Okay, level 16, we get a feat. Now, I'm kind of torn on this. My auto pick would be Lucky. It's just obviously a great feat. You'll be glad to have it. I don't need to explain Lucky, I'm sure. Where I'm my dark horse pick would be the Metamagic Adept feat from Tasha's. I'm not an enormous fan of this feat, but there's a reason why you might want to take it for this particular character. What Metamagic Adept gives you, it gives you 2 Metamagics from the sorcerer, and you get 2 sorcery points. So you're probably going to take Quicken Spell and Empowered Spell, and you've only got 2 points. So if you use Quicken Spell, that's it. So once a day, to be able to do that, I would probably use it for 2 empowered spells for Fireball. That will improve your Fireball's average damage by 7. So, and hitting all those targets. So it's not incidental. But I'll explain more as to why you might want to think about that feat at the next level, which we'll do now. So level 17. This is effectively your capstone, and I don't think I'll need to explain why that is. You get 4 spell slots now. So now with 2 short rests a day, you're getting 12 spell slots of 5th level. And of course, your Mystic Arcanums. And of course, your Mystic Arcanum here is Wish. I'm assuming you're going to take Wish. If you don't take Wish, there's something wrong. Take Wish. So I would only ever use Wish to replicate an 8th level spell slot or 8th level spell or lower. I would never push the Wish where I might put myself in a position of being stressed and have that 33% chance of not being able to do the spell again. So what can you do with an 8th level spell from any spell list? Well, the number one choice is going to be Simulacrum. Simulacrum, of course, creates a duplicate of yourself. It has half your hit points and otherwise has all of your statistics. So let's just think about that for a minute. Now, it doesn't recover its expended spell slots. which puts it kind of like on a clock of usefulness. But there are two things that you have that makes this so much more valuable than a wizard casting this spell. You have Eldritch Blast. That's not a spell slot. So you cast Simulacrum, and now you've got an extra battery of Eldritch Blast every round. But more importantly, your Mystic Arcanums are not spell slots. You recover them. They're like a once-a-day power that you use, and you get them back. They're not spell slots. It says so specifically. I could see why a DM would rule against this, but rule is written. They are not spell slots. Even if the DM rules against that, it's still, you're still getting all of your spell slots in it, plus the Mystic Arcanums. It's insane. It's insane. Plus, it's a walking Eldritch Blast battery. Just madness. And it gets even worse. It doesn't have any equipment. So you're going to want to equip it, of course. Because even if the thing dies every day, you just wish for it again. There's no material component cost to wish. There's no material component. And via wish, you don't spend the material component for Simulacrum, which is 1,500 gold and other stuff. So you're going to have an extra you from here on out. Now, granted, we're just doing 17th level and 18th and 19th and 20th level for the sake of completion. You're probably never even going to get here. But if you do, you use Wish for Simulacrum, and you basically just keep it in your back pocket if you need to do it again, because at half your hit points, it's very likely it could go down. I don't know that you can make party space if you've got a full party for your Inspiring Leader, which at this point at level 17, you'd be giving out 22 temporary hit points. Maybe you forgo them for yourself and give them to the Simulacrum. You could. Anyway, what I would do just for fun is I would get an extra set of identical clothing. I would get everything to be identical with me and my Simulacrum. And the reason I would do this is just for sheer nonsense, that if either one of us were to cast Mirror Image and we look identical, then that's kind of covering both of us. Now the DM may, and if we're staying fairly close together, it would be pretty rough, I think, for the DM to argue against it. He might say, well, no, it's mirroring the one who cast it, and it's doing this, and they can't tell which one. You're doing something else, so it can tell it's not you. It can make that argument, but it depends on who you're fighting. Is it an intelligent creature that would make that discernment? If it's more of a bestial creature, it looks just like this, which one is it? I could see that playing for you. That's a very small consideration. Obviously, you could send it in as a fake you that's operating as an agent for you. Whatever. You want it to look like you as much as possible, I would think. But that's up to you. There's other hijinks we can get into here. Now, whether you get the bottle, it says specifically it doesn't come with any equipment, but it is an identical you. And the bottle does come from the patron. And I just don't know how that would work. But you are now a 17th level warlock for your patron. You're one of his most valuable warlocks he probably has. Does he just throw in an extra bottle for the Simulacrum, and when it dies, it's gone? Maybe. If the DM allowed for that to happen, then you can do the bottle trick in spades now. Because what your Simulacrum does have is the ability to cast Find Familiar as a ritual. Again, not a spell slot. So another imp. It's crazy. The sheer amount of nonsense that this level is just craziness. Plus, Well, I could do a whole video on the use of Wish for this character, and maybe I will down the line. But you get the framework of it, right? This is the number one use for it, and there's obviously many, many, many uses for Wish, but this is by far and away the best one. So on to the other things that 17th level gives you. You get your 4th bolt from Eldritch Blast, and you get your 4th slot. Those are all great and good. But you get Wish. You get Wish. I almost forgot. So why was I thinking maybe you want to take the feat of Metamagic Adept? That's why. Because your Simulacrum will have it too. So you're getting double that now. So when he casts Fireball, it's going to be able to hit for more damage. Or he could quicken it, or whatever. So you're effectively getting 4 sorcery points a day. It's something to think about. Now, in terms of damage, average damage per round, you're going to be doing 42 on average from Eldritch Blast, 4 from Maddening Hex, and if you do Armor of Agathis, and you've got 4 spell slots now, so you might as well. I mean, may as well. If you do Armor of Agathis, 1 casting, that's going to be about 5 points per round of extra damage. So what are we at now? So that's 46, 51, plus 15 from Fireball would be 66. And you could effectively double that with Simulacrum. That's crazy. Crazy. And that's kind of rinse and repeat. Because while you're going to lose the Pact magic slots from the Simulacrum, and while it would be kind of mean, because it's a living creature, technically speaking. I mean, it is an illusion, but it is sentient. I mean, it's still got value after its spell slots are gone. It absolutely does. But if you were of the evil mentality, and your patron is evil, it doesn't mean that you have to be by any stretch, but it's possible that you would be evil because your patron is evil. Or maybe the imps just finally turned you evil at this point. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the point about the Simulacrum is once the spell slots are gone, you're not going to get that extra 15 points of damage from Fireball around. But hey, it's still going to be doing 46 from Eldritch Blast reliably every round. And remember, if it does find familiar and gets the imp, you're getting an extra help. It can give itself the help action as well. So it just goes on and on. Plus another spy. It's insane. But in terms of average damage, that's what it is. Now, if you wanted to be evil, because you can cast Wish every day, once the Simulacrum had expended its Pact magic slots, you could wish for Simulacrum and poof, it goes and another one is in its place. If you weren't evil and you did this, your DM is probably going to call you on the carpet for it because you are basically killing something just so it can be a little bit more effective in combat. But it's an option. It's a terrifying option, but it's there. So 17th level. Wow. Okay, we're going to sort of wrap the last 3 levels up because they are really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. 18th level, you get a new invocation. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Chains of Sasiri or whatever it is. It's an invocation that allows you to throw Hold Monster without expending a spell slot, provided that the creature is a fiend, celestial, or elemental. So, I mean, I'm not crazy about that, but it's very likely that you'll be encountering creatures like that, especially at 18th level. So maybe, or just pick out I mean, there's plenty of, there's the one that you can cast Arcane Eye without casting a spell slot. You don't really need that at this point because you've got so many other options. You might have 2 imps running around that you can have patrolling. It's just insane what this character has become. So whatever invocation you want, just again, it's dealer's choice at this point. There's nothing you need. Let's put it that way. 19th level, you get an ASI, and you may want to just do a straight up ASI. You might want to put it in Dex to give yourself a 16 Dex to help your initiative primarily. It'll help your other stuff as well, your armor class and your saving throws. But I've already talked about the importance of going early. If you were inclined to, you could, if you took the Metamagic thing earlier, you could take Lucky here, and that would be what I would do if I had taken the Metamagic Adept earlier. So 19th level, it just kind of depends on what you've taken. If you're taking Lucky, that's a big deal. You'll be glad you did. And 20th level is just super disappointing. Their capstone ability. You talk to your patron and you get all of your spell slots back once a day. It's just so disappointing. So I rushed through that because I really think that you basically have 3 levels to play with. I would strongly recommend looking into multi-classing. When you do it is the key here. Now, if you do multi-class, you will be missing out on that last ASI. But as I just pointed out, that ASI is not pivotal. Well, obviously, if anything you're getting at 19th level can't be considered pivotal. So you don't need it. So I would definitely multi-class out of this, unless I was just wanting to be such a purist about it. But mechanically, it's just so weak. Levels 18, 19, and 20 are just so bad. So you could go Sorcerer, obviously. There's lots of, getting Metamagic is why you would be doing it, and then being able to sacrifice your Sorcerer spell slots and get more Metamagic points or sorcery points. And then, of course, you can sack out your Pact magic as well. You could do it. Here's the thing, though, that would... The reason I would do Sorcerer, there is another D&D YouTuber who, before he was a YouTuber, made guides. His name is Treant Monk. And if you don't watch Treant Monk, you should, if you like optimization, because that's what he's about. He's just all about optimization. But I liked his guides quite a bit. I saw that he had a YouTube channel. I routinely watch him. And I'll refer to some of his videos from time to time because he has some things I think are of great value, and you should pay attention to him. He did a video on the Eldritch Knight, and he mentioned this idea. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you here is entirely because I would not have thought of this had he not mentioned this idea. So I'm crediting him for this initial idea. The idea is there's a second level spell that's on the Wizard and Sorcerer spell list called Dragon's Breath. Essentially, you touch a willing creature and you empower that creature for 1 minute. They can breathe, and you pick a damage type, an energy damage type. A 15-foot cone. It's saved for half. And they can do that every round as an action for a minute. He suggests doing it with an Eldritch Knight, having Find Familiar, and having the Familiar do it would be a neat trick. So Dragon's Breath itself does 3d6 for every level higher. You're doing an additional d6, so that would be 3 levels higher with your 5th level slots. So this would be a 6d6 save for half cone that the imp could cast every turn for a minute. And then, of course, let's not forget our Simulacrum friend, who has a imp and also has the multi-class option from you. So it has Dragon's Breath, so you could have 2 of these things flying around, invisible, and using that ability is just taking an action. It would not violate the invisibility, and you'd just be wreaking havoc all over Kingdom Come. It would be delightful to watch. It would also be a nightmare for the DM. For that reason alone, I would do 3 levels of Sorcerer. There's obviously a lot of other things you can do, but just that trick alone would be worth it to me. The other thing I would consider, and I know this is a real long shot to even mention this, but one that would be interesting, kind of just one you might not think of, is also in Tasha, the Rune Knight. Now, you would have to have a 13 strength to even do this. It's not likely, it's pretty much impossible if you're doing point buy or stat array that you would have a 13 strength. You'd have to be rolling to do this, and you would have to have rolled pretty well to have a 13 strength, because it should be a dump stat for you. But, maybe if you had a 13 and a 12, you go ahead and you put that 13 into strength knowing that you would do this. What you would immediately get from the Rune Knight is you would get, as a fighter at first level, you would get access to medium armor and shields. Your spellcasting focus is a ring. So your armor class would go up significantly here. That by itself is pretty nice. And of course, you get second wind, and that's nice. And at second level, of course, you get action surge, which means your opening round, you could be dropping 2 fireballs. That's awfully nice. And at third level, you get the Rune Knight effects. And I won't go into the whole thing about Rune Knights, but because you wouldn't have to go Rune Knight, you could do any 3 levels of fighter. I just particularly think Rune Knight, the different runes you have abilities to redirect damages and apply advantage or disadvantage. It's just a very interesting new suite of powers that you could add on to your character, which I think thematically is kind of interesting for a genie to be able to just chain, oh no, you didn't hit me, you hit him. It seems very fitting to me. Anyway, so you got 3 levels to play with. The question is where you put them. Here's what I would say. Absolutely no earlier than 10th level. You want to get to the bottle as soon as possible. And I would argue 14th level. And quite frankly, none of that is going to trump what you're going to get with Wish and Simulacrum and all that. So I think I would stay the course through level 17 and then play out the rest, because at that you're so crazy powerful, and you want to fulfill the genie wish, so to speak. Pardon the pun. So I would do it at the end. All right, folks, that's all I've got. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope thank you for watching. This came out a little bit later than I wanted to, because I was playing around with what to do with multi-classing and what to do with Wish, and I wanted to have something to offer before I did the video. So anyway, if you enjoyed, it's all I've got for right now. If you enjoyed this, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.